Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Rose DiMartini. They call me the Goodnight Nurse, and I'm doing a presentation today on getting a good night's sleep. Who I am is I'm a registered nurse. I'm a licensed massage therapist. I'm a sequential integrative homeopath, emergency medical technician, an herbalist, an energy worker, and a lifestyle speaker and consultant. I do lots of things. My focus mostly is on sleep problems and environmental toxins, and that will emerge as we move through this. First of all, I have a disclaimer. The information in this presentation is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional, and it's not intended as medical advice. It's intended as a sharing of information and personal experiences. I encourage you to make your healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with a qualified healthcare professional. Now, one of the very most important pillars of health, and we've all heard these all our life, is sleep. Diet, nutrition, hydration, movement and exercise, sunlight, a healthy mental and emotional life, and a fun and mindful life all depend on good sleep, and sleep depends on all of them as well. You can't separate them. Sleep is the time when our body recovers and regenerates itself. The brain processes all its mental emotional issues in the REM dream state. The brain can only detox itself via the glymphatic system during deep sleep, which is usually the early hours of sleep between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Your bedroom is sacred space. You spend a third of your life in that area, and maintaining it properly is a priority, as is good sleep. It's the time our body repairs itself. Insomnia and other sleep disorders are an ever-increasing problem today. It's manifest everywhere. The causes are becoming more and more complex, and there are many ways to improve the quality of sleep. Sleep promotes energy, and energy supports sleep. Both depend upon good mitochondrial health. Our mitochondria in the cells have two distinct roles. One is for energy production, which we always hear about, creating ATP, and the other one that we don't hear too much about is for cellular defense. It cannot create energy as long as it is in this defense mode. And when it's in a fight or flight mode or any kind of other challenges, then it's going to stay in that cellular defense mode, and there's no energy produced. So the problems that manifest when the mitochondria are kept in defense mode are everything. The list just includes everything. So I'm not going to go into all the details because anything you could possibly mention would be in that list. The things that are commonly associated with sleep problems are sleep apnea, narcolepsy, insomnia, jet lag, restless leg syndrome, and snoring. Those are typical things that you hear about, and there's certain treatments for those, but it goes far beyond that. It's historically, our ancient ancestors were hunter-gatherers. They were not agrarian farmers, nor were they occupied with animal husbandry. They migrated with the seasons and where food was available. They lived in the daylight hours, awakened with the sunrise, and initially slept in the dark. We are physically and genetically the same as they were. When they learned to capture fire, their day was extended with campfire light, and their dietary consumption began to include cooked foods. They were still intimately connected to the earth cycles and energies, and their primary health concerns were to not be eaten or killed by other tribes. Fast forward to the late 1800s, early 1900s, discovery of electricity and the invention of the light bulb began the gradual illumination of homes, and with it a shift in our sleep and wake cycles and our habits in an ever-increasing toxic industrial world. There's the usual sleep hygiene promoters that we often, not supposed to be hear about. Avoid stimulants like coffee and tea, alcohol, nicotine, and chocolate. Even consumed earlier in the day can affect your brain chemistry for several hours that affect sleep patterns. There's a neurotransmitter called adenosine, and when those receptors are blocked by caffeine, then we don't get sleepy during the evening hours and we have trouble falling asleep. And the more we consume the nicotine, calcium, alcohol, coffee, all those things that affect it, the more we build a tolerance to it. You don't want to eat within 3 to 4 hours of bedtime because your body has to do the digestion, and that takes away from the energy for promoting sleep. We want to shift the heavier meals to earlier in the day and eat lighter in the daytime. But make sure all your meals are within the light hours. You don't want to eat after it turns dark. Avoid heavy family discussions before bedtime and avoid vigorous exercise late in the day. Sit less, move around more. Avoid disturbing television programs, violent movies, or the news, which there's not much difference. Have a consistent bedtime ritual. Some people like a warm bath or a shower because getting into clean sheets with a clean body is always very restful. A massage, soothing music, meditation, a good book. Try to reduce the lighting as you near bedtime and avoid LED screens and other blue light sources. They have the blue light that from the monitors and screens and cell phone screens tends to take away all our melatonin, which promotes sleep. And you need to really be blocking that. And I'll talk about a few things with that. You need to be consistent. Try to get to bed the same time each night as much as possible and be consistent about it. 10 to 6 is kind of a ideal, just as your meals should be consistent every day. All those things contribute. But it's been discovered that teens actually have a later circadian cycle than the average adult. And of course, that doesn't correspond well to school cycles and everything. So children are usually really tired when they get home from school because their circadian rhythms don't match ours. And there's actually been some schools in certain areas that have taken that into account and shifted their school starting times later, which is very beneficial for teenagers. Some people talk about using the 3-day sleep holiday to try and get their circadian rhythm back on cycle. I've never been able to do that. I can't imagine spending 3 days sleeping or trying to sleep and not being able to do things. But another behavioral therapy that is to get to bed at 10 o'clock and then wake up at 4:30 every morning for 21 days. Whether you're tired or not, you stay awake from those periods. And supposedly after 21 days, your body kind of gets into a rhythm. But try and get at least 30 minutes early AM sunshine outside daily because the sunlight just kind of triggers those neurotransmitters and your cortisol levels and everything so that they're in the proper circadian rhythm. You want to engage in the low intensity exercise in the morning. So going outside in the morning, preferably barefoot and getting that early morning sunlight, even if there's not sun outside, just the sunlight that filters through is sufficient to get your circadian rhythm in vogue. Environmentally, you want darkness at nighttime. You want no dimmable LEDs or other lighting in the house. Those affect your melatonin. You want to replace the regular LEDs and fluorescents with incandescent bulbs wherever possible. Put a piece of black tape or something over any LEDs in the room that on appliances or fixtures in the room that you see the little lights on. It makes it really difficult when you're traveling and going into hotels because there's so many little things that you can't put towels and stuff in front of everything. But if you can carry some tape with you and reach all the little lights just to kind of cover them up, because even a tiny little speck of light can offset your melatonin. You can use blackout curtains or you can use the blackout masks. They have blue-green blockers. Some are blue blockers, but blue-green blockers are much more intense. There are some green lights that affect your eyes as well. But I have some different varieties of these lenses. I found the blue-green blockers take everything out. All you see is red and it's really difficult to do any work or read with them on. So if you can get good blue blockers, I recommend that. Do not use those all day though, because you don't want to block the blue light in the daytime because you need that in the daytime hours. Just use them, when the sun goes down, go ahead and put your blue blockers on. And you got to remember that every cell in the body is a photoreceptor. So it's not just your eyes, your face and this area here can absorb that light and affect your sleep as well. There's a doctor that actually promotes, covering everything but your eyes and putting the blue blocker lights on, and I'll demonstrate that. I did that. So other than looking like the Unabomber, I would suggest, try and cover as much as you can because we are photo beings and we absorb all that light from everywhere. Other environmental factors, you want to keep the room temperature cool. 68 is typically the ideal, but in anything below that, if you get too cold, then that will interfere with your sleep, but you want to find that sweet spot for you. You can turn on a fan or white noise if you need it, or pink noise, but you want to keep anything like that at least 6 foot away from the bed because it puts off fields that will interfere with your sleep as well. Some find that a weighted blanket is helpful. There's some caveats to that. If you can keep it all over your body, that's good. But I found that, because I have one, I found that if you put it on and you just got it up to your waist and just cover your legs, that it has a tourniquet effect and it can really have some blood pressure problems with it. So you want to be mindful of that if you use a weighted blanket. Know what is on the other side of the wall at the head of your bed, because if there's any electronic equipment behind your, in the next room, that will affect you. There's also frequencies that are in the wiring in your walls that can affect you, and that's going into a whole lot more detail. And we can talk about that if you want to. And know what's in your bed. You know, try and get a good clean mattress. There's so many things in mattresses today. Supposedly, you're supposed to replace your mattress every 10 years. Make sure it's, you know, good organic materials that are biocompatible with you. I discovered when I bought, I had a 47-year-old mattress that I finally gave away and replaced it with a natural organic mattress. And I thought it was the best thing I could get. And it was the natural latex, which I would be wary of, and make sure that you test that before you go to latex, because some people are sensitive to it. And I found out the first night I slept on it that I was one of them. So I had to let it off gas for 2 months before I could even sleep in the bed. So be very mindful of what's in your bed. Also, there's a lot of beds have, if it's has the box spring, they have metal coils in them, and those act like antennas. And anything metal in your bed is going to interfere. So if you have a metal frame bed, or if you have those metal coils in your bed, those can be factors as well if you've got electricity in the house that's a problem, because that's just grounding everything through you in the bed. And so there's ways to assess that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And of course, there's, like I was saying, the electromagnetic issues. You don't want to have any electronics in your bedroom, television, stereos, computers, anything like that. Take it out of the bedroom. The bedroom is for sleep. Don't use any babysitters with, you know, using cell phones and baby monitors and things like that. Get them out of the room. If you have to have your phone for use as far as alarm clock or whatever, put it in airplane mode, but don't put anything close to your head. No cell phones, computers, iPads, gaming equipment, baby monitors, or players. And if possible, turn off your Wi-Fi at night. Ideally, you would wire your house with Ethernet and not use Wi-Fi at all. And if you do have Ethernet running, make sure that the Wi-Fi is turned off. I have not got that ability. I have Ethernet in my house, but my router does not allow me to turn the Wi-Fi off at the router itself. So I have a little remote monitor, and I turn it off before I go to bedtime. So if you can at least turn it off at bedtime when you need the rest, that's the most important time. And put your phone in airplane mode. Unless you're expecting an important call or anything like that, please put your phone in airplane mode, and otherwise put it in the next room. And then I would recommend, if possible, to give your house an assessment. They can check for all the radio frequency and electromagnetic energies and dirty electricity that can be a problem in your house, because all those affect us very deeply. And also eliminate any chronic stressors and limiting beliefs in your life, because those can certainly interfere with your sleep. Create time for fun, play, and creative endeavors. And spend time in nature, barefoot if possible. That's the best recharge we can do, is just to be outside and connect with the earth or with trees or whatever, because trees are actually antennas. They absorb all that and take it right down into the earth. It's also very beneficial to journal and keep a sleep diary. If you can put something beside the bed, so if you have trouble sleeping, sometimes just journaling and getting things out of your head will help you get a better night's sleep. I found the best way to do that without having to turn lights on is things that I've done. I have a little bedside flashlight, and it has a red beam in it, because red doesn't interfere with your sleep so much. And then if I have to get up during the night to go into the bathroom or anything like that, I have a particular light in my bathroom that has a red bulb in it. So I can just turn that on and not have to turn all the bright lights on and totally wipe out my melatonin. So be mindful of that. If you can make those adjustments, I highly recommend it. And then, of course, ensure adequate hydration and nutrition. That's a course all in itself, but make sure you're getting plenty of water. We are electrical beings. We need hydration. We're a battery. We need water and we need electrolytes. And then stimulating vagal tone. That goes a long way to strengthening your mitochondria, which goes a long way in promoting sleep. There's different systems, autonomic nervous system. There's the ventral vagal system, which is what we relate to resting and digesting. That's when we recover. Then we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight that most people have heard of. We also have a system called the dorsal vagal system, and that's another part of the fight or flight, but it's in a different part of the brain, and it's when we are overwhelmed and don't see an alternative to getting out of a situation, and we just freeze. And there's a really interesting book, if you get a chance to read it, called Crooked, written by a man who was writing about the results of vaccination. And he discusses this vagal system, and it's very eye-opening. So I highly recommend that you explore that. Some ways to stimulate the vagus nerve to make that vagal tone. The vagus nerve connects the brain and the rest of the body, most specifically the gut, but also the nervous system, the heart, the everything. It's the main nerve. It's the 10th cranial nerve. Some ways to stimulate that nerve is with singing, chanting, or music, gargling very deeply for an extended amount of time, not just a quick little gargle. Dancing, yoga, tai chi, deep laughter, that's really good therapy. Slow, deep breathing, gagging, which is not one that most people want to do, but it is something that stimulates that nerve. And then what we call hormesis, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Hormesis being anti-fragile, Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Hormesis is a mild or acute stressor that promotes adaptation in an organism, which increases the resistance and vitality of that organism. That's the basis of what a lot of therapies are based on, where you take a little bit of something to protect you from being exposed to something. That's what vaccination originally came from, though they've kind of taken it in a different direction. Wind extinguishes the flame, but energizes the fire. And the avoidance of stressors can be just as harmful as chronic stress. I do stress to a lot of my clients that if they try too hard to eliminate everything bad in their life or try and keep things too clean, they actually do a disservice to their body, because their body needs those challenges in order to strengthen it so it can mount a defense when it encounters it again. Something really interesting to me was xenohermetic dietary phytochemicals. These are the chemical constituents that we receive from our plants. They're tiny stressors that strengthen us. One of the reasons plant foods, vegetables, are good for us is because they have those phytochemicals in them, which on a continuum can either be medicine, food, or poison. You know, there's a continuum, and we'd have to find that sweet spot to know what's considered food or medicine or poison. But that little tiny bit of poison is what strengthens us and makes it medicine. So it's about finding that sweet spot. Other hormetics that aid circadian rhythm and strengthen the mitochondria are infrared saunas. Most of the saunas out there put off a lot of electromagnetic fields, which is not a good thing, but when you weigh the risks versus benefits, I think the use of an infrared sauna is valuable enough to offset that. You're only in it for 20 to 30 minutes, rather than being in it all day. And I think the benefits of a sauna to detox is far enough to outweigh that. Red light therapy. There's a gentleman named Ari Whitten who wrote a book on red light therapy, and it really promotes the circadian rhythm during the daytime. It's just shining. They have like these boxes that you can set up and expose your body to this red light therapy. And it's a combination of infrared light and LED red bulbs. And it has all sorts of good benefits. And so I recommend, looking at his book. And then cold therapy, which taking cold showers, at least finishing off your shower with cold water, or doing ice plunges, or going to some of the places that do cryotherapy are really good ways to strengthen your body, as well as intermittent hypoxic therapy, where you do a lot of breath holding. And there's a gentleman named Wim Hof. If you look on his website and explore his information, the cold therapy and intermittent hypoxic therapy are his two big things, and deep breathing. And so he kind of walks you through how to do a lot of those things and why. And it's really fascinating stuff. And it's really good for your body and your mitochondria. Then there's intermittent fasting and calorie restriction, kind of limiting that eating window that we have, and putting your body into a slight fasting mode also improves the mitochondria. You don't want to go starvation, and you don't want to just do one meal a day, but you want to eat your meals at certain spacings, but eat your meals within that eating window, usually about 8 to 10 hours, 12 at the most. And then, of course, gentle motion exercise, not too vigorously, because over-exercising can be just as stressful for the body as not exercising at all. So you want good motion. Natural motion is the best, just getting out and running through the woods and climbing trees and doing things like that is really good exercise. We need some, weight-bearing exercises to strengthen our bones. We need some aerobic exercises for our heart. And then we just need things to, things like yoga to give us flexibility. And then getting plenty of sun exposure. Not like everything else, you don't want to exceed it, but you want to give yourself enough sun exposure, maybe 15 or 20 minutes early morning and late afternoon, when the sun is not, going to burn you, because burning is not good. But getting that little bit of sun exposure, developing a little tan is very beneficial. We've been frightened out of the sunshine, and it's best to get as much skin coverage as you can. Don't use any kind of sunscreens or sunglasses. Get as much area exposed as possible. Vitamin D has been, associated with sun exposure, and most people cannot get enough vitamin D just from the typical sun exposure that they do get, especially if they go and they shower off right after they do sunbathing, because that washes the oils off that stimulate the hormone of vitamin D. So exposing as much area of your body as you can is beneficial. And if necessary, some people benefit by having a mid-afternoon nap. I've never been a napper. Even when I was in preschool, I would not take a nap. So, but some people benefit. If you take more than 30 minutes, though, it can kind of interfere with your sleep time. So you want to just take little power naps. There are some supplements that are good to use to help with sleep. Again, under guidance, because you don't want to just take melatonin, because it can interfere with your own production. But doing some L-theanine, 5-HTP, GABA, B6, magnesium, phosphatidylserine, and a few others, they can be beneficial for the short term. Sleep aids may be needed in the short term, but pharmaceuticals have a much higher problem of misuse, dependency, and they can actually disrupt the sleep. And if you have a sleep problem and you go in and have a sleep study, which I did, it's really sad, because most of the environments that they put you in to do the study are not conducive to good natural sleep anyway. You've got cameras and lights and all these things attached to you, and that somebody's watching you. And so it's not very sleep promotional. And they actually will offer you a sleep aid, which to me would interfere with the proper rhythm that they're measuring anyway. So don't depend too much on what the sleep studies information they give you. Try to do some of the natural things first. There are certainly some conditions that require, using the CPAP machines and things like that can be very beneficial for many people. The CPAP actually made my sleep worse, so I discontinued it. But if you have deep problems, then you might benefit by that. Again, it has an electrical motor, which puts off fields that can interfere with your sleep. So if there's a way to shield it and keep the distance with it, that would be beneficial as well. Some herbs and oils that you can use: lemon balm, calendula, lavender, chamomile, passion flower, milky oat, magnolia, and kava kava. These are the most common ones. Some can be diffused as oils, and some you can take as a tea. Chamomile tea is an old favorite, or lemon balm and passion flower. You can take tinctures as well. But again, I would do these under guidance because you don't want to use these, especially if you're going to be using some of them and then driving. Sleep deprivation, though, causes us to store body fat, increase cortisol and insulin, raises our blood sugar, and lowers the testosterone and growth factor. It causes us to be hungrier, crave sweets and fatty foods, and make poor choices. It also contributes to depression, lack of motivation, and heart disease. They've determined that there is a definite link between sleep apnea and metabolic syndrome. Shift workers are at high risk for many problems, and even if they adapt to those time shifts that they have, especially if it's rotating shifts, it's always going to have a detrimental effect. Deep sleep is where our body cleans up all the metabolites and neurotransmitters metabolism via the lymphatic system. Our body has a lymphatic system to drain off all the debris of the day, but the brain itself is not connected to that system directly. It requires that period of deep sleep when the brain shrinks and it works kind of like a sponge and pulls the cerebral spinal fluid in to kind of flush the system, and then it drains it off. So what can be also helpful to do at bedtime and even in the morning is to take some lotion or something and just kind of massage through from the top of the scalp down and through across the throat area. You don't want to do them symmetrically or too deeply because you can have a vagal response from that, and it can actually make you pass out if you do it too briskly. But just having that drainage, because sometimes, there can be some blockage because there's a whole lot of lymphatic nodes and stuff in this area, and you want to make sure that they're draining off good. A lot of problems can be circumvented if we can just get that drainage to work properly. So measuring deep sleep is the most important thing. And a lot of people will use body kind of motion, the sensors that the people wear, Fitbits and Jawbones. I wear an Oura ring because, and they may have improved on the Fitbit since then. It used to be you had to keep Bluetooth on with it all the time in order for it to read. With the Oura ring, it can actually put your phone in sleep mode, airplane mode, and it will record from the ring itself, and then you download it in the morning, so you don't have to have that interaction with Bluetooth. So those kind of things can be helpful to kind of see what your sleep patterns look like. They say that the sleep cycles are 90-minute cycles. My sleep cycle does not look like that, so I'm not quite sure whose they are measuring, but you should go through these different cycles during the night in a rhythmic fashion. And like I said, most of the deep sleep is between 10 and 2. So if you're going to bed really late at night, you're missing out, and that's the most critical time to be in the bed. Beta is our waking state. Alpha is the transition state when you're just kind of drifting off to sleep. That's often where you are at meditation. Theta is the deep sleep cycle that's referred to as REM, and delta is the deeper sleep cycle. That's the one where you're really important pieces. Theta and delta are where the magic happens, and if the 90-minute cycle is interrupted at any point, you lose the benefit of that full cycle. So if you get woken up during the middle of that cycle, you lose that whole cycle. And typically a sleep period should have about 5 cycles, and so if you're getting interrupted at either end, you're going to miss out on some of those. So this is the book. If you want to get one book on sleep, this is the one that I would highly recommend. Matthew Walker's the one that kind of turned me on to all the important pieces of this, and how important it is to sleep. There's a lot of other good books out there. This is one that's good. It kind of comes from a different approach, but I think investing in knowing about sleep is important. There's some other people out there who are well known. Michael Bruce is referred to as a sleep doctor, and he categorizes people into 4 chronotypes: the lion, the bear, the dolphin, and the wolf. I am a dolphin. And each chronotype has its ideal cycle of waking and sleeping and its peak energy. And I'm not going to go into all the details of that because in his book, he goes into details of what's your best time to fall asleep and when you're most energetic during the day and all those kind of things. So it's an interesting read. He's done some little classes on sleep. And I took his class, but I didn't get as much as I think as I got out of Matthew's book. These are some other sources that are interesting. Of course, there's the Sleep Doctor is there. His link is there. Ari Whitten, who I mentioned before about red light, he has a course called The Energy Blueprint and a book associated with that. And I highly recommend it. If you take his course, it is very in-depth and very informative. I highly recommend him. And then I've got some here from Dr. Bergman and Dr. Davidson, who are both very good chiropractors. And hopefully that's what you'll be doing tonight. If you would like to explore this deeper with me, please contact me for a free 15-minute consult to see if I can be of service to you, and we can do some consultations. This is my email, and if you need to contact me, I'll be glad to talk with you. And I thank you. Sweet dreams. I do have a shameless plug. I did write a book. It's not all about sleep, but it does mention it. It mentions a lot of other things. This is my story. So if you want to know a little bit more about me, I highly recommend that you go and explore this. And I would love to get a review if you do read it. So I thank you for your attention. And let me get out of the screen share. That's the conclusion. And if you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to contact me. All right. Thank you.